Every night, thousands of people step onto late-night trains, never questioning where the tracks might truly lead. But what if one of those trains wasn't just delayed? What if it didn't exist at all? In this story, a simple commute home becomes a descent into a fractured reality, where time is warped, identities are stolen, and the train never really stops. One wrong stop, one missing moment, one ticket to something no one returns from. This is Dead in Transit. It was 12:47 a.m., the kind of hour where the city forgets it's alive, when everything hums low and the shadows start to listen. Eli Mercer stood alone on the platform at East Ridge Station, a place that never felt right during the day, and somehow even less right at night. There were no ads on the walls, no announcements overhead, only the soft electric buzz of the old overhead lights flickering like they were trying to decide whether to stay or go. He checked his phone. No service, not even Wi-Fi. The train was already late. Not surprising. East Ridge was one of those half-forgotten stops, the kind of place the city planners stopped caring about a long time ago. He shifted his backpack, looked down the tunnel, and paused. There it was again, that sound. A faint scraping, like metal brushing concrete. Far off, too steady to be random, too soft to track. He stepped back, watched the darkness beyond the tunnel's curve. Nothing. Then, headlights. Dim at first, then brighter, growing fast. But the sound? Wrong. Not the thunder of steel on steel, but something more muted, like the train was underwater. Eli took a slow breath, the hairs on his arms already rising. As the train rolled into the station, he noticed something else. There were no passengers inside, just rows of empty seats and one flickering overhead light at the very back of the car. The doors opened with a hiss, releasing a burst of cold, dry air. He hesitated, looked around. Still no one. No cameras, no signs. Just the sound of his own breath and the growing sensation that someone, somewhere, was watching him. He stepped on. The doors closed behind him, sudden and silent. The lights inside were dim, casting a sickly yellow hue across the interior. Old ads hung loosely from the frames, their images long peeled or faded into blankness. Eli sat down near the middle, placing his backpack on his lap. The train started moving, but there was no announcement, no automated voice, no map lighting up, just forward motion, smooth, unnervingly smooth. As if the tracks had forgotten how to rattle. Minutes passed, or maybe more. Hard to tell. No stations, no changes in scenery, only black tunnels. Eli stared out the window, watching the shadows blur, when something flashed. He leaned closer. A reflection? No. It looked like a face, pressed against the glass from the other side, but the train was underground. There was no other side. He looked again. Nothing there. Just his own reflection, and a faint outline of something standing directly behind him. He spun around. The car was empty. Still empty. But the air felt thicker, colder, like someone had just left, or was about to arrive. He turned back toward the window, and this time, he didn't see his own face. He saw a corridor, a hallway, stretching into darkness, where the tunnel should have been. Then, it was gone. The lights inside the car blinked once, then again. He stood, took a few cautious steps forward, trying not to look too long at the windows now. As he walked toward the next car, he noticed something off. The far door. It was slightly open. That was impossible. All doors locked between moving cars. He knew that. Everyone did. And yet, a draft of stale air seeped through the crack, carrying with it the scent of rust and something else, something wet. Eli reached out, his fingers just about to touch the cold metal. He froze. Then, movement. A shadow shifted just beyond the door, low to the ground. Fast. He took a step back, heart racing. "Is someone there?" he called out, his voice sounding too small for the size of the silence. Nothing answered. No footsteps. No voice. Just that scraping sound again. Closer this time, coming from both ends of the train. Then the lights shut off. Every single one. In the sudden dark, he could hear it. Breathing. Slow. Inhuman. Behind him. He turned. But there was nothing. Only the reflection in the window. And this time, the window showed a room full of people. All sitting. All perfectly still. And every single one of them was staring directly at him. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a dream. Eli Mercer had boarded the wrong train. And some rides you don't come back from. The train slowed, but not with a screech. It was more like hesitation, as if the machine itself wasn't sure it wanted to keep going. Eli stood at the center of the empty car, heart still racing. The lights had returned, dim, flickering, reluctant. He glanced back at the window. The reflections were gone. No faces, no strange corridor, just tunnel darkness. Again. The train came to a stop. The doors opened, but what stood outside the car wasn't the next station on the line. It was something else. Eli stepped out. The platform was covered in dust, thick, untouched, like no one had walked it in years. There were no posters, no signage, no metro map, just a single metal bench and a vending machine whose lights blinked like a dying heartbeat. Above him, where the station name should have been, there was nothing. Only paint chips and black space. Eli turned in a slow circle. There was no sound, no rats, no water dripping, no rumble of another train coming. It was like standing in a photograph, frozen in time. He looked back toward the train and stopped cold. The doors had closed. The train was gone. Just vanished. No sound, no departure, just empty track stretching into a black tunnel that somehow felt too long, too deep, like it didn't end. Eli took a breath and called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" His voice bounced back in a strange, stuttering echo, as if the station had forgotten how to respond. He walked slowly down the platform, shoes crunching in the dust. Every step made him feel more distant. From time, from logic, from reality. Then, a sound. Click, click, click. From the far end of the platform, like old heels on tile. But no one was there. He waited, another click, and then, slowly, a payphone on the wall began to ring. He stared at it. The handset was cracked, the cord frayed. It shouldn't have been working. And yet, it rang. 4 times. 5. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Eli walked toward it anyway, drawn by something that felt like instinct or fate. He reached out, picked up the receiver. There was no dial tone, just a whisper. "You got off." The voice was neither male nor female, just broken. Wrong. He froze. "Where am I?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Then, "You weren't supposed to get off." The line cut. He dropped the phone and stepped back. The air had changed again. It was colder, heavy, like water pressing in on him. He turned to go. And for a split second, the walls weren't tiled anymore. They were made of mirrors, and every reflection showed him, but not him. One stared back without eyes. One was smiling. One had its hand pressed against the glass like it wanted out. He blinked, and it was tile again. He ran. Not toward the tunnel, but toward the old staircase at the end of the platform. Each step echoed, but the echo didn't match his movement. Sometimes it was faster, sometimes slower, sometimes it didn't stop. He reached the top and found a door. Old, metal, paint peeling. He opened it and stepped out into a street he didn't recognize. Tall buildings stretched up like bones, windowless, shadowed, looming with unnatural symmetry. No cars, no people, no birds, no wind, just silence. Even the sky looked strange, gray, but glowing, like it was lit from beneath. He checked his phone again. Still no service. Battery, 66%. Time, 12:47 a.m. Same as before. It hadn't moved. The phone buzzed. A message appeared, but it wasn't from any number he knew. Just a name. Transit. The message read, "You left the line," followed by another, "Return before the next stop," or "Stay," and a third, "Choice closes soon." Eli looked down the street. At the door he came through. At the twisted buildings that weren't quite right. He was no longer underground, but he wasn't above it either. He was between places, a ghost in transit, and something was trying to find him. The city runs on schedules, tracks, timelines, but what happens when you step off the path? When you leave the system behind? You end up here, dead in transit. And your ride isn't over yet. Eli didn't remember choosing a direction, but his feet moved, as if the road was gently tilting, nudging him forward. The city around him, or whatever this place was, seemed to shift as he walked. Buildings warped subtly at the edges. Windows appeared, then disappeared. Signs flickered too fast to read. Nothing had a name. Everything had eyes. He passed a bus stop with no bench, just a cracked glass panel, and a map that made no sense. The lines on it bent in circles. One loop coiled into itself, like a spiral. Another went off the page entirely. Every stop on the route had the same name, transfer. He looked behind him. The path had changed. There was no door now, no stairwell, only an alley that hadn't been there before. He kept moving, because what else was there to do? Then, up ahead, a familiar sight. A transit information booth, out of place, modern, lit from within by a sterile white light, like a beacon dropped into a nightmare. He approached cautiously, stepped closer to the foggy glass window. No one inside, only a single metal timetable posted to the back wall. He leaned in. The schedule was titled Departures from Elsewhere. And below that, a list of times, some in the past, some in the future, some that weren't times at all. 13:99, now o'clock, the moment you realize. He blinked. His reflection in the window didn't blink with him. He stepped back, and the door to the booth slid open with a hiss like depressurizing air. Inside, it was colder, too cold, like it had been sealed away from time. A small terminal sat on the desk, old keyboard, green screen, cursor blinking, waiting. One question burned across the top in block letters. "Where were you going?" He hesitated, then typed, "Home." The terminal buzzed. Lines of code flickered. Then the response appeared. "Then you should not have boarded." And beneath that, "Next departure, not yours." He turned to leave. But the booth door had vanished. So had the window. He was no longer in the booth. He was on a train again. Different car, older, no lights this time. Just moonlight filtering in through broken windows. And outside, not tunnels, not the city, just darkness, pure, endless, depthless black, as if the train were gliding across nothing. Eli looked around. There was someone else in the train car now. A woman, sitting 2 rows ahead, face turned toward the window, motionless. He stepped forward. Hey. No response. She didn't turn. He moved closer. Excuse me, do you know where this is going? Still no movement. He was close enough now to see her skin. It looked too smooth, like wax. He reached out, and her head turned slowly. Too slowly. Eyes locked on his. Mouth moved, whispered. You got off the path. You have to get back on. What path? He asked. She blinked once, very slowly, then pointed to the window. He turned. Outside the glass, far in the distance, a glowing sign, bright red letters burned through the darkness. Next stop. Terminus. When he turned back, the woman was gone. Not just missing, gone, as if she had never been there, just an empty seat and a name tag on the floor. It read, Eli Mercer, his name, not hers. He reached for it. But the moment he touched it, the train shuddered. The lights blinked, the windows went black. Then, a voice crackled through the speaker above him, not the familiar automated tone, something older, more human, and barely contained. Final approach. All remaining passengers prepare for integration. Integration? He looked at the empty car again. He wasn't alone anymore. Rows of people now sat still, heads bowed, but they hadn't been there a moment ago. And they weren't right. Some flickered. Some shimmered like they were half light. One near the back was frozen mid-turn, as if caught in a corrupted frame of a film. And all of them wore his face. They were him. Versions of him. Different paths, different stops, all the ways he might have arrived here. All the ways he might not escape. The train began to slow, but not like before. This time, it felt final. He ran to the door, pounded on it. The window behind the glass showed firelight now, a platform that flickered, warped shapes moving on it, waiting. A sign above the station pulsed once, then twice, then displayed 3 words. No exit remaining. Every journey has a destination, but not every passenger chose it. Eli boarded a train that goes nowhere, and everywhere. And now, it's almost too late to get off. The train screeched to a halt, but this wasn't like any station Eli had seen. No posters, no people, not even walls, only a single platform floating in the black, suspended in nothing, lit by rows of flickering overhead lights that buzzed like dying insects. He didn't want to step off, but the door opened, and something behind him, something not visible but present, made it very clear. He had to get out. He stepped onto the platform. The train closed behind him, but it didn't move forward. It just vanished, as if swallowed by shadow. Eli turned around, scanning the platform. There was a booth at the far end. Old, glass, like the kind you'd find in a 1970s subway. But the inside was dark, its silhouette flickering with static. A turnstile stood next to it, but the gate was locked. Above it hung an ancient split-flap sign, still rattling as the letters flipped mechanically. One word appeared. Integration. Eli backed away slowly. Something was coming. He could feel it. A shift in the air, the weight of being watched. He looked down at his hands. They were trembling, but they weren't entirely his anymore. For a second, they shimmered, like pixels losing sync. He ran down the length of the platform, but no matter how far he moved, the booth never got closer. The turnstile remained the same distance away. He turned. Behind him, a wall now, solid concrete covered in screery Sam. Kshans. Black. Until one by one they flickered on. Each screen showed him, boarding the train, running, sitting in the empty car, scenes from moments ago, but captured by cameras he never saw. Then, a screen lit up, showing, now, him, on the platform. But something else stood behind him. He turned instantly. Nothing there. But when he turned back to the screen, the figure was closer. Each second it got nearer. No face, no shape, just a silhouette of absence. Something that only exists when you're not looking. A new screen turned on. Not him this time. Someone else. A man in a similar coat, running through a hallway of metal doors, panic in his eyes. He screamed at the camera. The audio crackled to life. "If you're seeing this, do not go through the gate." Static. "They copy you. Every version, every mistake you never made." More static. Then silence. And the man, on the screen, looked directly at Eli, as if the message was still alive. The monitors blinked out, and behind him, the gate unlocked. The turnstile began to turn on its own, inviting, commanding. The sign above flipped again. "You are ready." Eli didn't move. He couldn't. Because now, he heard footsteps, dozens of them, coming from all directions, from behind walls that weren't there, from stairs that didn't exist a second ago. And then, they emerged. Copies. Of him. Each one flickering. Damaged. One had blood on his hands. One had no eyes. One just stood, twitching. One was smiling. They circled him, staring, breathing in unison. And then, all at once, they spoke. "You got off the path. You were warned. One version must remain. Choose." Choose? Eli couldn't breathe. Choose what? They surrounded him now. He turned in slow circles, searching for any way out. And then, in the center of them all, a mirror appeared. A full-length, old glass mirror with a gilded edge, its surface rippling. He looked into it, and saw himself, but not as he was now, as he used to be, before the train, before the turn. Normal. Tired. A guy just trying to get home from work. The version that never got on. The reflection looked terrified, and behind him, the same black figure from the screen. Closer now, reaching through the glass. This was the real choice. Go back, or stay fractured forever. The others began to chant now. Not in English, not in any language that should exist. Just sounds. Broken syllables. Wrong tones. They stepped closer. He felt pressure in his head. Like thoughts weren't just his anymore. He made a decision. He ran. Straight into the mirror. The glass didn't break. It absorbed him. Light shattered. The platform vanished. The chanting stopped. When Eli opened his eyes, he was on the train. His normal train. The 1:22 a.m. red line. Passengers sat, dozing. Lights overhead, steady. The city outside the window. Normal. Real. He checked his phone. Service bars time, 1:28 a.m. He sat back, hands shaking. Did it happen? Was any of it real? He looked up, the map above the door, the stations listed in order, and at the end of the line, a new name had been added. Small. Faint. Almost as if it hadn't always been there. Terminus. He blinked, and it was gone. He made it back, but something made it back with him. Eli didn't talk about it. Not at first. Not to friends, not to co-workers, not even to himself. Because how do you explain a train that disappears into black static? A station that never existed? A version of yourself that never came back? Number. He told himself it was just a hallucination. Sleep deprivation. Stress. A dream. But the cracks started to show. It began with the lights in his apartment. They flickered, but only when he walked by. Mirrors fogged up even when there was no steam. And on 2 separate occasions, he saw movement behind him, only to turn around and find nothing. He stopped riding the train, took buses, walked when he could. But one night, 2 weeks later, he got a letter in the mail. No return address. No stamp. Just his name. Inside, a transit card, worn, cracked, stamped with 3 words, next arrival, midnight, and on the back, one way. He should have thrown it away, but he didn't. Because deep down, Eli knew something had come back with him, and now, it wanted to finish the journey. Midnight came. He stood outside, not at a station, just an empty street, lit by one flickering lamp. And then, he heard it, the train. But not from underground, from above. He looked up, and there, cutting through the sky like a silver blade, was a train on invisible tracks, suspended in the night like a scar on reality. It slowed as it neared him. Doors opened. Light spilled out. Inside were people, but none of them looked quite right. Each had something off, too still, too symmetrical, like masks wearing people, and one seat sat empty, waiting. Eli ran. He didn't look back. He didn't stop for lights or traffic. He just ran until he was out of breath, lungs tearing, heart pounding in his throat. But the sound followed him. Train wheels on no track. A mechanical rhythm that grew louder the further he fled. And then it stopped. Everything stopped. The street, the buildings, time, frozen like a paused VHS. And in the silence, a voice spoke. Not out loud, inside him. A soundless vibration in his bones. You left your seat. Another has filled it. But a seat must always be filled. Eli turned, and there, standing just inches behind him, was himself. The version he saw in the mirror, the one who hadn't taken the train. His hair shorter, eyes normal. Except he wasn't moving. Frozen, pale, a mannequin of memory. And then he blinked. Eli stumbled back. The other him walked forward, silent, expressionless, each footstep echoing with weight that wasn't physical. He reached out and touched Eli's chest, and in that instant, reality fractured. He saw it all. Every version of him on every train in every dimension where he took the red line home and made it. Or didn't. Some ended in flames. Some never ended at all. Some looped in shadow, feeding something that needed passengers. The red line wasn't transportation. It was collection. And Eli had escaped. Now, the system was correcting the error. There would be no running this time, because Eli was already gone. He opened his eyes, felt cold glass beneath him, lights above, metal walls. He was back on the train, the same seat, same hum, same map above the door. Only now. There was no destination listed, just a blinking message. You have arrived. The doors opened. Eli stepped out. But it wasn't a station. It was a city. Familiar, but wrong. The buildings were taller. The sky had no stars. People walked past him, wearing his face, but none of them looked back. No one recognized him, because this wasn't his world anymore. It was another terminus, and he was now part of it. A new thread in the ever-expanding system that ran on choices, mistakes, and forgotten versions. He felt something slip into his hand. A new transit card. It read, Next arrival, someone else. He turned it over. Blank. But not for long. Because soon, someone would find themselves on the wrong train, at the wrong time. Sitting in the seat he left behind. And when they did, the system would adjust. The train always moves forward, no matter who it takes with it.